Today's AskReddit post: what widely accepted fact do you know is wrong? Oh boy, this is gonna be a good one. Let's get started. Goldfishes really do not have a memory span of 5 seconds. They actually remember things for months, recognize their owners, and are able to distinguish them from other people. I had 2 goldfish when I was younger. Their names were Paula and Mr. Fishy. When Mr. Fishy died, Paula spent the next couple of days frantically swimming around the tank trying to find him. It was heartbreaking to watch. NASA spent $$ inventing a pen that worked in space, and the Russians used pencils. Right single quotation mark. Total bollocks. The Fisher Pen Company was independent and developed its space pen with zero investment from NASA. American astronauts began using mechanical pencils in space. Tiny fragments of graphite and graphite dust floating around the spacecraft was not ideal because graphite is conductive. It's also combustible. So everyone was keen to find an alternative. Fisher patented its first zero-gravity pen in 1965, and in 1967 NASA began using it. By 1969 Russia were also buying them for their space missions. Reportedly both NASA and the Soviet Space Company received the same discount for their bulk purchases. Thank you. Thus one is a perfect example of misunderstanding something complicated, the US federal procurement system, and drawing the exact wrong conclusion because of it. The Russians were smarter because they just used a pencil. A similar myth is that the dog would deliberately spend $600 on a single hammer. Rather, this was an accounting artifact due to contractors claiming a flat overhead price on a spare parts buy, split up evenly amongst all the spare parts. The cheap parts look ridiculously overpriced, but the expensive stuff, like engines, look ridiculously cheap. And then we ignore the cheap price on engines and focus only on the expensive hammers. We are here for you during these unprecedented times. That cracking your knuckles too often will cause arthritis. This thread reads like a spotter's guide to stuff my mum told me when I was young. That you have to wait 24 hours to report someone missing in the USA. There is no law about waiting. You don't have to push to make the police cooperate and list the person missing immediately when you suspect something isn't right. Don't lose precious time. It's extremely important if the person truly is missing. I don't know how that myth came to be. It's way too dangerous. Makes for compelling TV. How else is Jason supposed to go looking for Zoe by himself because the cops won't help? If you tell the truth, I won't get mad. This is exactly the same as saying if you confess, you won't go in jail. Although I guess witness protection is a form of this, only really works if there's a bigger fish. Though, I always thought witness protection was for innocent people who were witnesses to crimes, and the people who did it were going to kill them for testifying, not people who had actually committed a crime. Edit. Turns out all my knowledge of witness protection comes from Sister Act. I have learned something new today. Deleted. Napoleon wasn't small, he was just the victim of good propaganda by the eventual winners. Also his personal guard had a strict height requirement, so he was always around someone taller than him. That, and at the time the French were using a different sized inch than the English, so his official French height sounded small to the English, who were used to bigger numbers for height. It also doesn't help that when comparing him to the average height of people today, Napoleon would have been short. So when people learn that he was 5 feet 6 inches, or 168 cm, they immediately confirm their belief that he was short. He was considered either average or slightly above average height during his time. I wish I was born during his time so I can also be average : That medieval ancient people only lived to be 32 years old, and at that age, they were considered ancient. That estimate is an average, which means it accounts for high infant child mortality. Lots of ancient people lived to their 80s and older. If you made it to 30, chances are good you're making it another 30 plus years. If I recall correctly, the average for a Roman senator, so someone with a pretty solid life, was 69. P.S. Keep it classy. Reddit. Yeah, even in the modern world 60-70 is when major health problems creep in pretty fast. Without medicine I can definitely imagine that being a common death age. Or the idea of people never used to die of cancer. Or people never used to be diagnosed with mental disorders now. People died less of cancer because they didn't live long enough to die from it, or people were dying from it and humanity didn't have enough technology to tell. And we used to just ignore mental illness at best, or lock people up in asylums and torture them for no ducking reason at worst. Or you just keeled over at 71 day with some abdominal pains because your organs just shut down after having cancer for 5 years that you didn't know about. Schizophrenia has nothing to do with a split personality. There is also a pretty big difference between someone being moody and someone who has bipolar disorder. It drives me crazy when someone says that someone is so bipolar if they change their minds often or are in a bad mood. People generally don't know about the severity of the ups and downs. People do this with a variety of mental health issues and it's frustrating and unhelpful for all of them. The people that say I'm so OCD because I like to keep things organized. That's not OCD. You can keep things clean and organized with OCD, but just because you do it doesn't mean you have it. It's a disorder for a reason. Not just some funny quirk that makes you put your dishes in the sink after eating or wiping crumbs off a table. Or with ADHD. People will get distracted by something and go, oh haha, I'm so ADHD. Squirrel. Nope. Still not right. It can be a debilitating disorder that makes living daily life a nightmare. It's way more than just getting distracted sometimes. I'm not going to get into it because it's too much to type, but it's so much more. And bonus points for when someone with ADHD tells someone else and the non-ADHD person responds with we're all a little ADHD sometimes. Nope. Again, not how this works. There are some people that also do these things to diagnose others. According to my teacher's assistant in school, LM bipolar, have a severe case of ADHD and autism. She actually asked my parents to take me to a specialist to see what was wrong with me. I am just very moody, introverted, have a very short attention span and was a little piece of rebel shit when younger that didn't care at all about math. But what child isn't? She would also diagnose all other children. Parents of friend of mine at the time lost a lot of money taking their daughter to a bunch of exams because the teacher was sure the girl had OCD and convinced her parents. She did not. But she had a special eye on me because she was 100% sure that L was someone that needed to be medicated. Have met in my time a lot of people in IRL or the internet that the moment I'll say something about myself, try to diagnose me with everything from depression to ADHD. Don't do that. People. You are not my doctor or a specialist. Yeah, that's a huge pain in the ass and totally overstepping boundaries. I was diagnosed with ADHD at 22 by a psychiatrist. I've actually more often than not been told that I don't have ADHD by peers, random people, because I don't act like an 8-year-old boy. ADHD presents differently in women and there are also different types: hyperactive, inattentive, combo. So it can really vary. People really like to play armchair psychologist and it's such a bad idea. That you swallow 8 spiders a year in your sleep. The origins of that myth is so weird. It made its way around message boards in the 90s and possibly earlier. Then at some point, the Snopes Usenet board, pre-website, claimed that the myth was invented by a tech journalist who wanted to illustrate how lies spread on the internet. Except that Snopes lied. The journalist never existed. So now there's a second layer to the myth, that being the myth of who invented it and why. Just let me know. That video was so fascinating. The fact that Lisa Burgett Holst, the journalist who didn't exist, was an anagram for this is a big troll is much more spooky. People definitely expected the Spanish Inquisition. Lies. They gave people a heads up. I remember reading somewhere, I think they said on QI, that they would give something like 2 weeks written notice, which is wonderfully bureaucratic. We only use 10% of our brain. People didn't think the earth was flat 500 years ago. It was theorized to be round in the 5th century BC. The Americas were just not known yet, except to indigenous Americans, and it was believed that there was a vast ocean between Europe and Asia. People believed Columbus' voyage would fail because he would exhaust his food and supplies before crossing it. Edit. Holy F King S% it. This is the most liked comment I've ever made. Thanks for the medals, kind stranger. The Chinese also knew the earth was round earlier than that and even sent expeditions to map it, but they mostly got lost, did pirate stuff, or sank during storms. Way better boats than Columbus had though. Didn't some ancient Greek figure out the earth was round because he had some friends measure shadows of the same objects in same time in Egypt and Greece? Eratosthenes. I read this in Carl Sagan's voice. Cutting your hair makes it grow faster, or shaving makes it thicker. It is actually true to a certain extent. The first batch of hair that grows sort of tapers off at the top. So when you shave and the hair regrows, it now only regrows with the thicker end, giving the illusion of increased volume. There are some idiots out there who believe shaving will give them hair where it doesn't grow. I was that dumb idiot growing up in my teens. I was worried I couldn't grow a proper beard, so I would shave every other day even though there was nothing there. Shaving makes hair grow faster is a myth used by parents to get their teen boy to shave their cheesy mustache and to not have their teen girl shave their legs. If you have a cold, you should get lots of vitamin C. This is completely down to one scientist called Linus Pauling who had a theory that massive doses of vitamin C would cure colds. Subsequent studies have shown he was wrong and any benefits are minimal at best. Yet I still get everyone telling me to drink orange juice whenever I get a sniffle. My dad has smoked for 45 years and still thinks he's fine because he drinks a glass of orange juice every day. Left and right-brained people who are either more artistic or more numbers-based, just as inaccurate as the parts of your tongue that taste different things, yet people still say it. I really wish people wouldn't limit their own potential like that. Sorry, I just don't do math. I'm more of a creative type. Or I think too logically for art. Like, what? Look at Leonardo da Vinci. The dude invented a flying machine and painted the Mona Lisa at the same time. Creativity and logic are not mutually exclusive. Edit. To 2. The not a math person trope is so self-defeating. Yes, people have different skill levels, but you can manage algebra. Keith. Sugarcane grows faster on sand. Well, you can blame Minecraft for that one. Same with diamonds are blue. Blue diamonds are actually one of the rarest color of diamond. I'm pretty sure that the blue of the diamonds is meant to simulate lighting effects, like how the water is bluing. The Great Wall of China can be seen from space. Space, however, can be seen from the Great Wall of China. LOL, this guy believes in space. I don't even believe in personal space, let alone outer. The lawsuit over McDonald's coffee burn wasn't some ridiculous old lady looking to cheat the system and get money. She was legit severely burned and basically got very little money out of it. McDonald's purposely made the woman look like she was suing them for something ridiculous to cover their butts. Poor lady just wanted her medical bills covered. If I remember correctly, it wasn't even her that wanted to sue, it was her son or grandson that pushed her relentlessly to sue. And all she wanted was to get the bills covered. 3rd-degree burns to the inside of her legs and genitalia. It's actually a super ducked up story to read. Yeah, it is. If I remember correctly, McDonald's knew their coffee was too hot, but they felt the risk to their customers was less, as in being sued would cost less than the money they would save from not throwing away more coffee. Glass is actually an extremely viscous, slow-flowing liquid. That's why old windows are thicker on the bottom. No, it isn't. It's very clearly a solid. It's a disordered, non-crystalline solid, but still solid. Old windows are thicker on the bottom because they were designed that way. Edit. To everyone telling me that it is an amorphous solid. Yes, that's right. That's why I said it was disordered and non-crystalline. Still a solid though. When they made stained glass windows for the great cathedrals, they were smart enough to put the thicker part of the glass on the bottom so it would be stronger. Well, yes and no. Yes, they would pick the stronger side for the bottom, but irregularities came from the making of the glass. When liquid glass was poured, it would ripple, making small waves. They would try and pour by shifting the liquid flow, but it was always imperfect and the glass would cool before it could be perfectly flat. When I think my physics of materials teacher would tell us glass was a very viscous liquid, that old fart was like 200 and I had to unlearn so much BS. It's not Luke. I am your father, but no, I am your father. Depends on if you are watching Tommy Boy or not. That Einstein failed math was otherwise a poor student. In my school there was a poster of Einstein with a quote, "Do not worry about your difficulties in mathematics. I assure you mine are greater." It was supposed to be an inspirational quote, showing how even the greatest mathematicians struggled with math. But I always saw it as Einstein telling someone to shut up about their petty math problems while he was busy trying to figure out how the universe worked. Edit. Apparently I've insulted the field of mathematics by implying Einstein was a mathematician, so change the greatest mathematician for a really smart cookie. Frankenstein isn't the name of the monster. It's the name of the doctor who created the monster. But I saw this great comment on a YouTube video. Knowledge is knowing Frankenstein isn't the monster. Wisdom is knowing that Frankenstein is the monster. Apostrophe. Edit. For those of you who didn't understand that comment, it's saying that Dr. Frankenstein is the actual monster of the story. Frankenstein is a surname. He was created by Dr. Frankenstein. Hence his name is Adam Frankenstein. Inherited surname and whatnot from what's essentially his father. Also, Victor Frankenstein never actually got a doctorate or became a doctor. He was a goddamn college student that only cared about alchemy and was laughed at by his professors. He didn't only care about alchemy. His whole thing was that he thought to combine modern medical science with ancient disregarded ideas, like alchemy or bringing dead things to life. That different places on your tongue taste different things such as sour. Wait, what? I was taught this literally today in bio class. Edit. Okay, why the duck do I have this bigger thread under me? My comment was answered 2 or 3 replies down. Please stop commenting. When you go to the class next week, take a salt shaker with you. Ask the teacher to put salt on a non-salt tasting zone on their tongue. Ask them if they can taste the salt. Spoiler, they will be able to taste the salt. Fuck, I thought we were gonna do the pretend salt trick. You can slip that in as well. That the human only has 5 senses. Considering sense of humor, I still have only 5 of them. You don't really have an allergy to monosodium glutamate. Wait until the Karens know that their bodies also produce message face rolling on the floor laughing. Yeah, I know there is no such thing as an allergy to message, but I never could explain the excruciating migraines that popped up when I'd get some of that in my food, or how they mysteriously disappeared when I began to be more careful about the additive. I guess severe migraine when you accidentally ingest a food containing message is just a sure sign of insanity. I'll check with my doctor about that. I probably need to be locked up or something. But I am so glad I stopped getting the migraines anyway. Once I isolated the message as well as some artificial fragrance causes, they stopped. Kinda glad I'm crazy. Call me Karen. It won't hurt as bad as those migraines did. There's actually a small percentage of people that get headaches from message. Thanks for saying that. I usually keep it to myself after being treated like a Karen for it so many times. Slaves built the pyramids. Explain. Egyptians kept slaves, but for agriculture or household work. Pyramids were built with a skilled labor force when the crops weren't growing, like a construction version of National Guard service. Moreover, Israelites never worked on the pyramids, slave or free. They didn't arrive in Egypt until 1500 to 2000 years after the period when the pyramids were built. If you take the Bible as your source, it says they built cities to store resources, not the pyramids. So yeah, you'd be right. The pyramid workers were well paid. Exactly. If the Israelites worked on any tomb for any pharaoh, it would have been on one in the Valley of the Kings. That's where pharaohs were being buried by that time in Egyptian history. It's hard for most people to grasp how far back Egyptian history goes. Cleopatra was closer to the landing on the moon than she was to the building of the pyramids. That carrots help with your eyesight. It was propaganda by the Allies in World War II to hide the fact that they had radar. If you don't have enough vitamin A, also called keratin, you can get blind. So it's not completely wrong. Exactly. Vitamin A is very important in proper vision, but it doesn't determine your vision abilities. If you're legally blind or use glasses, vitamin A won't fix it, but it's still necessary. Bro, you actually watched the whole video. I'd give you a high five if I was a human. Make sure to click the like button and subscribe for more great content. See you next time.